bear with me just a second while I bring the screen up. Well, while this is lowering and booting up, you guys all saw the hostess. I brought some of these in. If you've never had one, go ahead and partake before they're in business.
Oh, the donuts?
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure.
I know. No more Twinkies. No more donuts. Sad.
I haven't had one in about 30 years.
I only eat them for the stuff inside anyway, the Twinkies.
You can buy a bunch and they'll last for the next 100 years.
Yeah, right.
Good point.
Is that the unnecessarily long pause?
I was just testing the sound system.
Make very
Okay, fellow Toastmasters and Jess, thank you for giving me this opportunity to work on my Toastmaster skills and speaking skills. Like Techon mentioned, I talked a lot about the what it takes to earn your pilot's license last speech, and this, since I had so many questions, I decided just to kind of continue the topic by discussing navigating. Yeah, this is a leap ahead because obviously when you're earning your pilot's license, you start off with just the control, but the navigating was an easier thing to discuss today. So especially for the number 3 topic. So without further ado, finding your way. Basically, navigating an aircraft is surprisingly simple, and by the way, it's concomitant to the navigation goes hand in hand with flying, since you have to know where you're going to get there. But the navigating is basically broken down into 3 primary methods for aviation. Those are pilotage, dead reckoning, and radio navigation. Obviously, a lot of the flying, if you've ever gone up with anybody yourselves, it's a lot of combination of one or more of these methods. The first one, pilotage. Okay, well, I forgot. I stuck a photo in there at the last minute. This is your typical cockpit. This is a Cessna 172, similar to the one I learned to fly in. What you're looking at is, it looks complex, but it really isn't. You have your basic, what they call a 6-pack up here, which is your airspeed, your attitude indicator, altimeter, turn coordinator, directional gyro, or your heading, which you set off the magnetic compass up there, and your vertical speed indicator. So I don't want to get into that right now, but what I'm focusing on is how to, where you're referring to on the panel, the instrument panel. These are your radio navigation aids, and of course, just so you know what I'm talking about when I get to that slide. So when I get to the radio navigation, this is what I'm talking about here, and I'll get a little bit more. I just wanted to familiarize you with there. But pilotage, first and foremost method is pilotage. That's basically just looking out the window and recognizing landmarks, features on that you can recognize and correlate to your map. These features can be anything you really can recognize yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the map, because a lot of pilots go out there, even though you're supposed to have a lot of these resources in a cockpit, you don't have to refer to them if you're familiar with the local area, what they call the local area. I've been up and down the Monterey coast and up to San Francisco giving Bay Area tours so many times I don't need a map anymore, even though there's very prescribed methods. But you can see on the screen any number of landmarks can be used to orient you. You're looking outside just like you're driving. You're looking at street signs and towns you drive through to orient yourself. It's the same way up there in flying. Now the thing with pilotage, and I'll show you an aviation sectional here in a second. Generally, the higher you are, the easier it is to see those features or recognize those features. This looks busy. Don't be intimidated by this, but this is an example of a VFR sectional, visual flight rules, which is what you use if you're not flying instrument. There's only VFR and IFR flying. This is what you use to navigate, and you can kind of see that the yellow is indicating the major built-up areas of San Francisco, and then of course you have the bridges and airports, fairly easy to recognize. Now they have, I don't have it overlaid on here, that'll come up on a later slide, but they have corridors, what they call VFR corridors. So when you're flying along, it kind of cues you in on what to look for when you're flying by pilotage. Certain landmarks, obviously the big easiest ones are the airports themselves, and then bodies of water, shorelines, you can see the terrain features. So it's a lot easier than what it looks. And these are a couple of examples I've kind of superimposed. These are the VFR corridors I mentioned. So when you come in for the Bay Area tour, they want you to follow the 101 up and then fly up along the coast west of the airport, west of SFO, up to the Golden Gate and kind of go around, basically a circle around the bay there. So this kind of gives you an orientation of what you're looking at, right off the coast here, the aircraft's orientation and what you see out the window, at your 10 o'clock, if you can understand that. So you see the Golden Gate Bridge, and then of course the Golden Gate Bridge is right here. So you can see how that's easy to orient. So I'm kind of trying to give you an idea of what to expect when you're flying by pilotage. And then down here, you're seeing the Moffett Field, which as easy to recognize because they have huge blimp hangars down there, which I understand they're knocking down, unfortunately.
Mm.
Okay, the second method is dead reckoning, and that's basically just plotting a course on the map, the same map, and then using winds aloft forecast from your friendly weatherman here to correct for any kind of wind drift and all that. So you can see on the map, if you fly for an hour and the wind's coming out, say you're flying due east and the wind's coming out of the north at 20 knots, or 20 miles an hour in this case, you'll be below 20 miles downwind. So you'll have to correct to get there. So that's really essentially what dead reckoning is. It's just correcting your heading to, just like on a river, if you want to get to a distant point, you have to kind of point out wind or else you'll drift down the river. So you'll kind of what they call crab into the wind, and then you'll arrive at the same place. So, but then you use, while you're up there, you're using pilotage just to check your progress en route. Finally, that's just an example of a log. You have checkpoints, directions, and so forth. It looks complicated, but it really isn't. The final method, radio navigation. This is really a crutch. A lot easier. A lot of pilots just use the GPS as a crutch because it's so easy to, just like you see in the car. You have a map. It's a moving map essentially, and you can see your progress as the terrain will just flow while you're. All you do is you designate either a waypoint, which are a lot of waypoints on the sectionals on the maps. They call me just so people know, hey, I'm at Haddam. I'm at Haddam intersection, so everybody knows where that is if they're around the local area. But this basically just moves, and they don't keep those skills up, the pilotage and dead reckoning, so those kind of get weak over time. And then basically to correlate to the moving map, you have a omni bearing selector, which is kind of shows you your course left or right, which that's a simplified version. So if you're heading towards a radio aid, it'll show you whether you're left, right, of course. Okay, so I've discussed the 3 different ways of navigating: pilotage, which is looking by landmarks; dead reckoning, which is course correction based on the winds and time and distance; and then radio navigation, which is the easiest and the crutch. Now, if an airline pilot gets lost, you can help them out. Thank you for your time.